comprehensive coverage on what's been happening across the country this weekend. And of course, you'll know by now that there are 4 cabinet secretaries who don't have their jobs, at least in the time being. Felix Kosgei, Davis Chirchir, Michael Kamau, Kazungu Kambi, as well as a number of other PSs who have stepped aside or been suspended by the president in the current renewed purge on corruption. But what does this all mean for the fight against corruption? We'll be getting into that in our comprehensive coverage of the 60-day ultimatum given by President Uhuru Kenyatta about with regard to stepping aside, investigating corruption and getting conclusion and go forward with respect to these cases. We're calling it the graph countdown. We'll be getting into that in a short moment, but right now let's get into the highlights on KTN Weekend Prime of what happened across the country today.
Na mimi nitasema rais, sitaki hata unifute, nipige nikufe ili iwe mfano, hii maneno ya hii corruption iishe.
Uhuru cracks the whip. 4 cabinet and principal secretaries suspended over graft claims.
So he should have presented his report to Parliament. And there's nowhere in law that they have to take the report to the president.
I wonder whether Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is a department in State House.
Who is left to throw stones? Corruption allegations touch all sectors of Kenyan society.
The world half marathon champion becomes the world cross-country champion.
Top of the world, Kenya wins 2 gold medals at the World Cross-Country Meet.
We strongly believe that these advisories are driven by considerations other than security.
And government dismisses UK and Australian terror warnings on Kenya. Thanks again for joining us on KTN Weekend Prime. Our sign language interpreter is William Silla. Let's get started. President Uhuru Kenyatta has suspended all state officials listed in the corruption list of shame and immediately replaced them. Uhuru has dropped 4 cabinet secretaries whose positions will be filled in acting capacity by their colleagues from different dockets. The president cracking the whip on those linked to corruption charges. But there still are over 160 other men and women named in the EACC report who have stayed put 2 days into President Kenyatta's 60-day ultimatum for investigations into their alleged corrupt practices to be completed. Now here at KTN, as we have done, we continue with our comprehensive reporting on corruption, counting down the days until the end of this ultimatum with a sustained 2 months of nightly reporting on these investigations. Who isn't resigning? What is the status of investigations? Will Kenyans' money be repatriated? We'll seek to answer all of these questions. And this, of course, is a graph countdown, starting with Sam Ogina's report on today's happenings. Now, let's just take that again. Now, in the last several months of corruption allegations, beg your pardon, President Uhuru Kenyatta has suspended all state officials, as we had mentioned, listed in the corruption list of shame, and immediately replaced them. Uhuru dropping 4 cabinet secretaries whose positions will be filled in an acting capacity. Sam Ogina now reports.
The president has reorganized his cabinet, seeing off 4 cabinet secretaries, 8 senior officers and principal secretaries, and 9 state corporation chiefs. All the 21 top officials linked to the corruption list of shame presented to Parliament have been replaced as they pave way for investigations by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Agency. The Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Felix Kosgei has been replaced by Industrialization Cabinet Secretary Eden Mohammed in acting capacity. Engineer Michael Kamau's transport docket will be held by Health Secretary James Macharia, while Energy Cabinet Secretary Davis Chirchir, who has been grilled by the Anti-Graft Agency over the Chicken Gate scandal, has been replaced by his Treasury counterpart Henry Rotich. Defense Secretary Rachel Lomamo steps in at the Labour Ministry in place of Kazungu Kambi.
Kama waziri Kambi ameiba, ambiwe umeiba bilioni 10, na mimi nitasema rais, sitaki hata unifute, nataka unipeleke katika msalaba, wewe mwenyewe uchukue hii bunduki ndogo, kwa sababu kubwa unaweza ukanikosa. Hii ndogo unipige nikufe, ili iwe mfano, hii maneno ya hii corruption iishe.
8 senior officers, among them Secretary to the Cabinet Francis Kimemia, Defense Principal Secretary Mutai Ringo, Ndova Muli the Transport Principal Secretary, Marian Keitan, Chief of Staff in the Office of the Deputy President, among others, are casualties to the President's staff stance on corruption in his administration. State corporation boards have been directed to urgently convene special board meetings to appoint acting officers for 9 state corporations whose executive have been plucked from their offices. Among them are Richard Langat, the Managing Director of NSSF, Lucy Mbuga of Kenya Airports Authority, and Charles Tonoi, the Managing Director, Kenya Pipeline Corporation.
Tunasema ya kwamba kama umekatwa, weka kando, ukisafirisha jina yako, urudi kwa kazi, mambo yakiwa murama.
Reports indicate that the Public Service Commission may have shortlisted some candidates for principal secretary positions who had pending integrity questions before the Anti-Corruption Commission. Some who went ahead to be appointed principal secretaries. The ripple effect of this were frenzied media briefings by those affected, all claiming they were blindly stepping aside as they have not been furnished with the charge sheet they face.
Sijaandikiwa barua na EACC, sijaitwa, hawajatuma hata SMS, hata WhatsApp kuhusu hii kitu.
I have appeared before EACC and made my statement, and I'm willing, available and ready to make any further clarification if called upon.
Kwa muda wote ambao nimekuwa katika serikali, nimetimiza wajibu wangu wa kujitolea na kwa uwazi.
The full picture of the accused in the list of shame will dawn on Tuesday when the list is tabled in Parliament. But in suspending key top officials from government, the President appears to be shifting from days of issuing threats and rhetoric to fighting fire by setting off an inferno. And the pressure will now be on the elected leaders named in the list of shame, as each of them searches their own conscience to determine if they will step aside. Samugina, KTN.
The time has come to make a statement on corruption. Those were President Uhuru Kenyatta's words during his State of the Nation address with respect to corruption. But the time has also come for one institution in government to show its independence by investigating the 175 cases that were forwarded to Uhuru Kenyatta in that confidential report that will be tabled on Tuesday. And that man is our man to watch tonight on the Graph Countdown. His name is Keriako Tobiko. Now, Keriako Tobiko, of course, is the Director of Public Prosecutions, and he, alongside the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, will be charged with investigating those 175 cases, unprecedented in Kenya, over 60 days. Remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta, in that State of the Nation address, said that with regard to investigating and prosecuting corruption, this cannot be an open-ended situation. In fact, urging that these corruption cases, be heard on a daily basis. Can he do that? Keriako Tobiko, that is the question. Given the history, the recent history of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, some would argue that he could or he cannot. Keriako Tobiko and the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution has been on a recruitment drive in the recent past, recruiting prosecutors for every county in this country. The target, of course, being that they'd like 2 prosecutors per court, per anti-corruption court, and per court in every county. And they haven't yet gotten to that. They're about 50 to 60% at last count with respect to staffing their office and making it strong enough to be able to bare its teeth and show its independence with respect to these corruption cases. Now, with respect to that, that's still happening. But another agency that will be crucial in doing this and in the success of these corruption cases is a Witness Protection Agency. The Witness Protection Agency was formed in 2008 and came into force in 2010. The law, I beg your pardon, was passed in 2008, coming into force in 2010. have been 5 years since the Witness Protection Agency has been enforced, and in all of those 5 years, every single one, it has been understaffed. It has been underfunded, beg your pardon. 196 million shillings last year given to the Witness Protection Agency. Sounds like a lot of money, but if you think about it, and at least through the director's own words, that could fund perhaps about 30 cases where that would require witness protection. In a case-by-case basis, that could extend from protecting one witness to protecting families of witnesses, and knowing how strong the people who, or rather knowing how prominent the people who have facing corruption charges, the 175 people, there could be a need to protect certain witnesses that have crucial information linking them to corruption charges. He is our man to watch tonight on the Graft Countdown, and we'll be taking a look at what the status of investigations from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions are over these next 58 days. It is day number 58 with respect to our Graft Countdown. Now let's move on with respect to graft, and now in the several last months, corruption allegations have been leveled against personalities in almost every sector of Kenyan society, from the National Assembly to the Law Society of Kenya, the Catholic Church and the police. So who's left to throw stones? Today, even as members of the executive stepped aside or got suspended by the president, a large clique of have adamantly stated that they won't go anywhere. Here now are their reactions to the list of shame and why there is no one to challenge them.
The confidential list of shame tabled by President Uhuru Kenyatta as he stamps his foot on corruption and clean house has attracted equal measure in praise and condemnation. Sources say 11 governors have been listed. However, the Governors' Council says governors will not vacate office since there are clear constitutional provisions for elected leaders facing integrity issues.
Some of them are even facing criminal charges, serious criminal charges. In a global court, why are they not stepping aside?
Marsabit Governor Ukur Yatani and his Isiolo counterpart Godana Doyo are among the governors who are supposed to vacate office pending investigations by the Anti-Corruption Commission. But the two are reading politics in the move. They have accused the Anti-Corruption CEO, Hala Kewako, of attempting to fix them because they come from rival clans.
Local political context, of course, comes from different clans or ethnic inclination from the two of us, and the politics of this region is actually determined by which clans you belong to.
Using the comfort of a commission like this to revive his lost political opportunity, he now wants to scavenge on the reputation of innocent leaders to revive a political interest.
The Anti-Corruption Commission has also come under the spotlight with its independence questioned after the president disclosed that he received the confidential list from its chief executive officer. Nairobi Governor Dr. Evans Kidero, who has been named the commission's report, says he's not aware of the charges and has never been probed by the commission's detectives.
The Anti-Corruption Authority is a constitutional office that reports to Parliament, not to the president. So he should have presented his report to Parliament.
It's an issue dealing with executive. Angeuliza mawaziri wake wa step aside. Mimi boss wangu ni speaker. Boss wa senators ni speaker. Kuna majority leader kwa National Assembly who is supposed to receive a report from anti-corruption and table it in Parliament for discussion, na huyo mwizi aende kushi.
I wonder whether Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is a department in State House. I don't know.
And even as some members of the executive succumb to executive orders to step aside, politicians are divided on how the graft dragon could be slayed.
Yeye mwenyewe alisema kwamba ufisadi mkubwa uko kwa ofisi yake, na Wakenya walimsikia. Sisi tunataka kuona katika hiyo list ya ufisadi makamu wake yuko ama hayuko.
Not be pointing fingers and asking, how come so and so is not on that list? We should not be asking the president, mbona wewe umetangaza hivi?
So the presumption of innocence must apply to all those people, whether it is governors, whether it is cabinet secretaries, PSS, or whoever. They are just stepping aside so that we can do investigation.
Mtu amesema umeiba, umefanya kosa fulani. Imesemekana tu ukae nje kidogo for 60 days. Wengine hata hawajaenda leave. Si hata wende leave.
Last week, Speaker of the National Assembly received a public petition seeking to remove the head of the Anti-Graft Commission and one of his deputies over integrity issues. Muma Matemo and Irene Keino are now subject of investigations by the National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee. Prior to this, Matemo had been involved in a tough wars with the Commission CEO Hala Kewako over the suspension of Deputy CEO Michael Mubea. But the National Assembly is not sitting pretty either. Members of its oversight committees have been engaged in accusations and counter-accusations over rent-seeking to alter investigative reports touching on institutions and individuals. Members of the Public Accounts Committee and the Agriculture Committee have smeared one another over sharing of kickbacks. The police that is supposed to investigate corruption have been accused of carrying out shoddy investigations. The Law Society of Kenya Council has been accused by a section of young lawyers under the banner of Okoa LSK for allegedly attempting to embezzle funds by ballooning the cost of LSK Arbitration Center. The recent AGM ended in disarray. On Thursday, KTN exposed rot in the Kisumu Catholic Church, where the Most Reverend Archbishop Zacchaeus Okoth of Kisumu Diocese has been accused by various parish officials and ordained priests of corruption and abuse of office in the name of God.
Whether what we are witnessing on the war on corruption is a political gimmick or not, only time will tell. But it's good to remember that corruption is a moral issue which should be punished, or else it could lead to the decay of society. Patrick Amimo, KTN, Nairobi.
All right, this are the pictures of the 4 cabinet secretaries who have resigned today, and I'll just go through them as well as with a list of people who are replacing them for the time being. Felix Kosgei, of course, from agriculture is being replaced for the time being by Adan Mohammed, who is also holding the industrialization docket. We've got Kazungu Kambi here, Kazungu Kambi here, who's being replaced by Rachel Omamo. She's going to be holding the Labor and Defense Ministries. Engineer Michael Kamau is going to be replaced by his health counterpart, James Masharia. And finally, at the end over here, we have Mr. Chirchir from the Energy Ministry, who's going to be replaced for the time being by Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury, Henry Rotich. These are 4 of at least 15 people who are suspended today. Those include principal secretaries like Nduva Muli, who served under engineer Michael Kamau, as well as 2 people who we had on our Graph Diaries wall of the accused last week. That's Francis Kimemia and Motea Iringo. We will be updating you with respect to what's happening in these cases on a day-by-day basis. Now, Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaiseri has condemned the latest travel advisories issued by the United Kingdom and Australia against Kenya. He's termed the advisories as a ploy to intimidate Kenyans. Nkaiseri asked Kenyans to keep calm and cooperate with security agencies as investigations to verify the claims are conducted. He was speaking in reaction to yesterday's terror alert by the Australian government and a travel advisory by the United Kingdom against all but essential travel to the Kenyan coast.
We are particularly concerned that the countries that have issued advisories are considered friends who have been part of our counter-terrorism effort all along. As government, we strongly believe that these advisories are driven by considerations other than security. In the past few days, the Kenyan government is privy to emails of a character akin to economic sabotage, which are similar to those circulated a week ahead of Christmas last year, that are again in circulation. The government strongly condemns this act, whose aim is to scare and intimidate Kenyan, and has initiated an investigation to establish those involved.
Priests and brothers from the Kisumu Catholic Archdiocese have mounted a spirited defense of their Archbishop Zacchaeus Okoth over allegations that his office was involved in fleecing the Vatican of millions of shillings. The priests, however, walked out when Standard journalist John Lawrence walked in and tried to show them documents that implicated the Archbishop. Remember, on Thursday on our investigative series, The Lead, Dennis Onsarigo aired some of those documents that implicated the Archdiocese with a trail leading right to Archbishop Okoth's door. Now here's more on that story.
KTN's investigations desk.
Weeks of investigations by KTN and the Nairobian revealed what appeared to be a major scam in the Kisumu Diocese of the Catholic Church. We uncovered a racket involving the office of the Archbishop Zacchaeus Okoth, in which millions of shillings sent to Kenya from the Vatican are swindled in an intricate web of deceit. Detailed investigations revealed a scheme in which names of priests are used to solicit funds for non-existent projects. The priests' signatures are then forged without their knowledge to cover up the fraudulent dealings.
You don't have a convent like
We don't have a convent here. You can even walk around. There is no convent here. If this is Christ the King, Cathedral Convent, it could be a plan.
It's a complete project. It's complete. There's a photo. It's a complete project that costed you 10 million shillings.
Well, I'm not aware of this building, but what I know is the future plan for this, to have a convent at Cathedral.
And now, some of the priests from the Kisumu Diocese have risen in defense of the Archbishop.
We stand with and by our Father, Most Reverend Zacchaeus Okoth, the Catholic Archbishop of Kisumu, and categorically state that we wholly dissociate ourselves from the content of the news clip in reference.
The Pope's representative in Nairobi confirmed to KTN that the documents held by KTN were authentic and that investigations have now been launched into the conduct of the Archbishop.
As far as the documents are concerned, there's nothing wrong with the documentation or the process. Now, if the bishop is inventing something, I cannot know that until someone brings it to my attention. Whether the bishop used the money, or any bishop, whether it's in Lodwar or Garissa, if he's asking for something and doesn't use it for the purposes for which it was asked, that's not correct.
The expose in KTN's new series The Lead aired on Thursday night after warnings by the Archbishop's lawyers that it should not be aired. This despite KTN and the Nairobian having tried for 2 weeks to get the Archbishop's response to no avail. Some of the testimonies in the expose were given by priests who work under the Archbishop.
Not sign, but this is not my sign. How can I sign? My sign is different. Okay. It's just my name.
But some of the priests defending Bishop Okoth are not happy.
The strategic plan was the result of the inputs of all priests and laity of the Archdiocese. The insinuation in the news clip that the priests, brothers and sisters, are oblivious of the project is misleading.
We read mischief and malice in the way the whole news clip was crafted and aired, and believe the motive was to character assassinate the Archbishop.
However, the press briefing by the priest today at the St. Teresa's Kibuye Catholic Church ended abruptly when one of the Standard investigative journalists, John Lawrence, walked in with the documents upon which the expose was based and tried to ask them questions. Now, Tino KTN, Weekend Prime.
If you missed that investigative series, The Lead, you can catch it on our website, www.standardmedia.co.ke. Just go to the KTN icon and click on The Lead. Dennis Onsarigo's comprehensive report on disturbing and shocking matters of corruption there in the Kisumu diocese. Now to health matters. Cerebral palsy is a condition that affects muscle control and movement, and it usually is caused by injury to the brain before, during or after birth. Now, caring for a child with cerebral palsy is not easy, especially if you have no income. Najma Ismail brings you the story tonight of Ruth Mwenja, a courageous mother whose unconditional love for her son gives her the strength to take each day as it comes.
I was in denial at first because I was like, no, it cannot be my baby, and probably not me.
Every pregnant woman's dream is to give birth to a healthy baby, one with no complications whatsoever. Especially if you're a first-time mother, you will be anxious to attend your antenatal clinics just to make sure that everything is okay. 27-year-old Ruth Mwenja was overjoyed when she found out she was pregnant back in 2010. And like most mothers, she was looking forward to a healthy baby. But fate had something else in store for her.
No, there was no signs. And every time I visited a clinic, for my antenatal clinic, everything was fine. The pregnancy was smooth throughout.
After seeing her story on social media, I decided to pay Ruth Mwenja a visit to witness firsthand her struggles of raising baby Nevi. Meet Neville Ndungu, an innocent 3-year-old boy who cannot comprehend what is happening in his surroundings because he has one of the most severe cases of cerebral palsy. Baby Nevi cannot even respond to his mother's loving touch. The only time he makes any movement is when he's uncomfortable, in pain, or having convulsions. During our interview, Baby Nevi suffered quite a few convulsions, and on several occasions we had to stop the interview and let him get better. It's lunchtime at Ruth Mwenja's single-room house. She's getting ready to feed Nevi. His feeding utensils must be handled with utmost hygiene. Nevi's food consists of arrowroots, chicken, rice and carrots, which have to be mashed, sieved and then diluted to become liquid in order to go through the tube. Nevi is unable to feed through the mouth. However, the little boy never goes hungry and is never late for his meals. His mother Ruth has mastered the art of caring for him. She carefully sets everything in place.
It's an open wound, that's why we have put a bandage there.
This tube, known as the gastronomy tube, is very expensive, costing 40,000 shillings. It has to be changed every month, and at the moment, Ruth only has one. The opening on baby Nevi's stomach where the tube is connected has to be cleaned and dressed twice a day. Otherwise, it can become septic. Baby Nevi is supposed to have physiotherapy every day, which costs 1,000 shillings a session. But his mother, who lost her job due to constant absenteeism, cannot afford it. The lack of therapy has made Nevi's limbs extremely stiff. No insurance company wants to cover brain damage and cater for anticonvulsant drugs.
Yes, I lost my job last February because taking Nevi to hospital is like an everyday job.
Even though Ruth is no longer in denial and has accepted that her baby will never be like other babies, she attributes Nevi's condition to medical negligence.
During the review, the doctor told me that I had already dilated and I should have my baby that day. But I was surprised because I was not in any labor pain.
Ruth was induced, and that is when her nightmare began.
So they induced the labor, and after a few hours after inducement, my labor began. I labored. It was my first time, so I kept pressing the bell. At a point when the nurses were so mad because I kept pressing the bell, and they told me you should not ring the bell again until you see water or blood.
Ruth did not see any water or blood, and so she labored until the following morning.
The same doctor came for checkup. He broke the water. Then he ordered that I should be put on drip. So the second day I was put on drip.
At 5 o'clock, Ruth was taken to the delivery room, and once again she was told to push but nothing was coming out.
Then at around 6 p.m., the same doctor came back. And when he came back, he said, when unasumbua watu hapa, you're going to push that baby whether you are in labor or not. He told one of the male nurse there to put his elbow on my belly, so they will push. So the nurse will push my belly with his elbow, and that's how Nevi was born. I was so happy, but then he said, have you seen what you have done to the baby?
According to Dr. Sami Chalo, a gynecologist, all hope is not lost for patients with cerebral palsy.
With the coming up of the stem cell therapy, I think we may get some sort of treatment with the advent of the stem cell therapy.
Ruth continues to bravely share her story with no fear of stigma on all social media platforms to create awareness and for emotional and financial support. She hopes that her story will change society's mindset about cerebral palsy. Najma Ismail, KTN Weekend Prime.
What a moving story there by Najma Ismail, and we just have to commend everybody who is caring for children who have not just cerebral palsy but any other disability or ailment, and the strength that it takes to be able to do that. Now let's get into some of your feedback on our hashtag tonight. That's Graph Countdown with respect to what happened today with the stepping aside or suspension, whichever way you'd like to look at it, of 4 cabinet secretaries as well as a number of principal secretaries. More expected to come next week after the tabling of the parliamentary report. We'll wait and see. Let's get into some of your feedback here. Apenda Swahili says, county governments, brace yourselves. Get your sleeves up on hashtag Graph Countdown. Lots of feedback coming out as well about people who some Kenyans, some of you at home, expect to be on the list of shame. Of course, I can't read them here publicly. Just go to the hashtag and see who those people are. Ben J. Keraro says, and this is an interesting one, getting a lot of feedback about this. I'm repulsed by this quote-unquote step-aside thing. If these people really want to help, they should just quit, not take leave. Well, keep your feedback coming in on the hashtag Graph Countdown. Remember, this is day 58 of our coverage of the Graph Countdown, that 60-day ultimatum given by President Uhuru Kenyatta with respect to investigations, prosecutions, and the guilt or innocence of those mentioned in that EACC report. We will continue with this night by night until that ultimatum ends, and of course beyond that. Stay tuned for more on KTN Weekend Prime, including great interviews with some of the doctors who've just returned from Ebola-free countries with Sharon Momanyi. That's after the break on The Point of News, KTN Weekend Prime. Stay tuned. Just ahead, to the land of Ebola and back, Kenyan doctors tell their stories.
You are watching KTN Weekend Prime.
Buda, ushawahi jipata kwa situation critical, yani huna credo na already una deni ya ukoa jahazi? Usiwahi tense, kuna hii app mpya inaweza kusort kabisa. Inaitwa Royalty King na ni sare by the way. All you have to do is grab your phone, visit Google Play Store, download and start earning points every time you receive a call. Convert as little as 20 points into Safaricom, Airtel or Orange airtime or data bundles. Maze, tuaibu tudogo to credo, utaona tena. Jibambe na Royalty King app, a product of Standard Digital powered by Mobi Ads.
Welcome back to KTN Weekend Prime. Now, as the world shook and countries rushed to cancel flights to and from West African nations affected by the deadly Ebola virus, some selfless and courageous groups of professionals were headed there to help. Among them were Kenyan doctors and nurses who volunteered to join the medical teams. Tonight, Sharon Momanyi speaks to two of them on their experiences and their motivation.
Many Kenyans would be curious, like, how do you decide to volunteer for this high-risk mission? I can actually say a deadly mission to go to Liberia. Was it a voluntary thing or was it a duty call?
Both voluntary and duty call, because from the kind of work I do at KNH, I'm involved in the infection prevention and control, and now the disease outbreak is part of my day-to-day activity.
I'm a risk taker, so when I saw the opportunity, I remember it was, I was in the house, I was just browsing and looking at things, because I had finished my course. I was feeling sort of idle. I needed something more aggressive to do as a nurse. So in the process, I came about the advertisement by Quicksilver Group via Brighter Monday. My spouse was there, so I made a joke. What if I went to West Africa? I mean, what's the big deal? I'm free. And he said, apply first, then we will see what happens.
This is a high-risk kind of an environment and a disease. So were you prepared to expose yourself to this, you know, actually prepared to die for this?
I don't want to say that I was prepared to die. My service was going to be on infection prevention and control, and this one, as an infection control practitioner, my role has always been to ensure the safety of staff, patients, and the community.
As soon as I applied for this job, the urge to read more about West Africa came. So I went to the internet and every day kept, you know, updating myself about how many people are dying, what about the healthcare workers, why are they also dying in, you know, large numbers. That was a challenge, and that was an opportunity to prove that I can handle such a challenge. And another thing I realized with Ebola, it was about a certain protocol to be followed. For as long as you're following the protocol, then you're safe.
But I'm really curious, like the point you actually broke it to your wife that you want to go to Liberia, at that point where everyone, like there was many fatalities out of it. Like what was the reaction? I'm really curious, and I'm sure many people would be.
She started shedding tears, yes, because now she looked at it as if I was not really serious or I didn't care for the family. But it was not easy, because even up to the time I was going, I think she must have been praying that I change my mind. Yes, even at the time she escorted me up to the airport, and still it's only that she couldn't go with me. Yes.
Actually, his point of view was probably from the number of years we have lived and to the, you know, number of experience I've had as a medical personnel. I think he believed that I would do the right thing, because by the time I was leaving Nairobi Hospital, I left as a senior nurse, which was quite an advanced stage in my career, and he just believed it will all be fine.
You've gone there, you've been given this training and how to deal all that, and now you have to get to that point where now you're dealing with the actual cases. And you've served for all these years, you've told me over 12 years of giving care, really. So how was that experience for you as a nurse, taking care of patients infected with Ebola?
And we got our first patient. It was scary. The real thing was here now. Those ones were trainings, yes. But the real thing was here. I was in charge of the nursing department. I need to say who does what, depending on what is on the ground. But with everything that we did, we saw progress in a positive way, and that gave us the motivation. We felt that we wanted to do more.
And what was it like? You got to see people who were infected with the virus, people who were trying to manage it. What was it like, you know, engaging and dealing with this?
Despite all this kind of preparation, still people were not ready for the challenge. people had fears. Yes. Yeah. What fear of unknown. Now, now this is the Ebola. Yeah, this is the Ebola patient, and this is the first patient you are receiving, and now you must deal with this patient as required.
How was that experience for you as a nurse, taking care of patients infected with Ebola?
And we got our first patient. It was scary. The real thing was here now. Those ones were trainings, yes, but the real thing was here. I was in charge of the nursing department. I need to say who does what depending on what is on the ground. But with everything that we did, we saw progress in a positive way, and that gave us the motivation. We felt that we wanted to do more as the time went, and the more our patients felt better, the more we got the urge and the strength.
Maybe what is your most memorable, or what was the most dire case that you dealt with, something that really shook you?
Yeah, there were 4 children, and then again the wife was pregnant. Now plus the husband who is the father, yes, and a daughter, and the father died. Now the pregnant wife, she turned negative while still pregnant, while the pregnancy was still intact, and that was a great news even for the ETU and the whole of Liberia, because it was the first case of a pregnant woman turning negative for Ebola while pregnant.
So what was it like when you came back? First, because there's that joy of you have come back alive, but then there's also that fear of you're coming from this place, so what was the reaction from not just your family but also friends and whatnot? That's both happy that you're back, and there's also the risk of exposure.
I was always updating friends and relatives, yes, while in Liberia, so they all knew that I was safe. I could also send them photos, to update them everything I was doing. Even when I was going to the UN clinic, that was now the final day, then we go to the airport. I also told them that we have been certified Ebola free. Yeah, so they were eagerly waiting for us, and the moment we landed at the airport, the relatives were there.
That experience has changed me. I feel new. I feel like fresh. I feel like I have all it takes to just give, services to those who need it. And of course, with the knowledge that we acquired, it gives some confidence and competence that no matter what challenge comes, we are strong enough for it.
Speaking to people from countries affected by Ebola, their greatest respite is seeing Africans coming from other parts of Africa to help them. And those are 2 brave volunteers from our very own Kenya. Congratulations to them. Well, KTN Weekend Prime continues in a few minutes. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after the break. Welcome back. 2 suspected rhino poachers were shot dead at Lake Nakuru National Park last night by Kenya Wildlife Service rangers. The Assistant Director of Central Rift Conservation Area, George Nagwana, said Kenya Wildlife Service officers on patrol trailed the poachers to the park at around 10:30 p.m. Nagwana said the rangers were forced to shoot the poachers who were at the rhino range section after they failed to surrender. Rangers recovered a Mark IV rifle with 5 rounds of ammunition, a knife, an axe, 2 loaves of bread and 2 bottles of soda. Nakuru County Commissioner Mohammed Birik, who went to the park after the incident, commended the rangers in their fight against poaching, citing that the Linda Kifaru initiative that was launched last year has had some success in the conservation of wildlife.
We have enhanced the KWS personnel, the KWS rangers, so that they are more effective in terms of beats and patrols. Equally, quite a number of significant tools of work. Of course, I don't need to share with you what these tools of work are, but a substantial amount of tools of work have been received.
From experience, we've learned that they normally come here for a day, 2 or 3. So like these ones, going by what they were carrying, they were intending to stay here for more than a day.
Former President Daniel Arap Moi has appealed to Kenyans and education stakeholders from across the region to take issues related to girl-child education more seriously. Speaking at Eminging Boys High School in Baringo County during a prize-giving and prayer day, Moi said he was not satisfied with the manner in which girls were being handled in education matters. He said more girls in secondary schools should be established all over the country and encourage residents of Eminging community to source for extra space and funds to establish another secondary school for girls.
Properly, you will be educating boys all the time and leaving the girls uneducated. What sort of society will that be? It is funny when we come to celebrate about boys. What about girls standing by? What will they say? These boys will be educated here, will be go to universities, come back. Marry who?
Well, it's almost time for sports news now, where we will highlight that fantastic goal by Boniface Onyango in the Ulinzi Stars clash, as well as a disappointing showing by the Kenyan Shujaa in Hong Kong. Moses, what's going on with the Kenya team after the inclusion of Humphrey Kayange and his brother Collins Injera? We'd expect that there would be better results, at least from the matches that I saw, at least part of it. It looked like we were getting our acts together, but what do you think's been going wrong?
I think Kenya needs to go back to the basics, because knock-on forwards, the simple basics that people need to understand so as to play rugby effectively. Those are the things that are making our team trail. Actually, Collins Injera did what he had to do. He played out his all out, but still there's something that's not taking to that rugby team. But we're going to have that and much more. Actually, on some positive note, Kenya won 2 gold medals in Wuyang, China in the World Cross Country Championship. But we're going to have that and much more after a very short break. Kenya will play Canada in tomorrow's ball quarterfinals at 4:30 a.m. Let's hope that the homeboys at least will secure 1 single point. Still in matters of rugby, Enterprise Cup defending champions Top Fry Nakuru have been bubbled out of that competition. The Wanyore surprisingly had to sing to the homeboys' tunes at their own backyard in Nakuru. Kenya Cup champions KCB qualified for the semi-finals after beating long-time rivals Kenya Harlequins at the Ruaraka grounds.
The last time KCB and Queens met was in Kenya Cup, where eventual winners KCB dominated Queens to win 71-15. And with a place in the Enterprise Cup semi-final looming, both teams started the encounter with intensity, but it was Queens who took an early 5-0 lead. This, however, did not sit well with the bankers and hosts, who responded well with a Mark Sadaka trying to take the lead. Queens had their lead restored through a converted penalty to make matters 8-7. Despite both sides producing impressive displays, they failed to cross the whitewash as Queens held on to the lead heading into the break. After the breather, Darwin Mukiza restored KCB's lead through a penalty to give the bankers a 10-8 lead. Darwin continued to terrorize Queens as he made 3 more points to widen the bankers' lead by 5 points to gift KCB with a 13-8 victory. In other encounters of the day, defending champions Top Fry Nakuru suffered a shock defeat at home to homeboys. Despite being 8-0 up early in the game, the home side were unable to hold on to their lead as fired up homeboys made 13 points to snatch away a hard-fought victory at Nakuru Athletic Club.
The game was very tight and hard, and to us it's history, because we've never beaten Nakuru.
This year has been an unfortunate year. We lost 2 games in a long season.
Pan-African Strathmore Leos emerged 25 victors over Toto Nodis as Impala thrashed Western Bulls 37-23. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
The Pipeline women's volleyball team registered their second victory at the African Club Championships after beating Kutwano of Botswana 3 straight sets in Cairo. Pipeline, who had won against Cameroon's FAP on Friday, needed some little effort to bring down Kutwano's 25-11, 25-4 and 25-13 in Pool C. But KCB were not lucky as they lost the opening Group B match by 3 sets to GSP of Algeria. KCB, who finished 9th last year, offered some resistance in the opening set but lost 25-20 in the other remaining sets. The Algerian side made easy work to the bunkers in the second and third set, 25-14 and 25-10. And that's all we had for you in today's edition of KTN Sports. My name is Moses Wahisi. But remember, today is a Russia night, another reason for you to keep it KTN. Have a lovely night. Let me just read 2 tweets on your feedback on our hashtag Graft Countdown. Mongai Kaigwa with a rather sarcastic tweet here on the hashtag saying Kumbe governors and governors' offices are private, not public, referring to the fact that not one single governor thought to be in that list has resigned. We've got SOS Peter Courier says, such a pity to see all corners are full of corruption, including the church. Of course, as a follow-up tweet to that story we ran today on the response of the Diocese of Kisumu to Dennis Onsarigo's comprehensive investigative report, The Lead on Corruption in Kisumu. Lots of feedback here, including congratulations to KTN on continuing with our coverage of Graft Countdown. Oriokolo, we can assure you that when 60 days are done, every single night will be filled with coverage on Graft Countdown, as we did with Graft Diaries. Our comprehensive coverage of corruption issues in this country will continue until some go forward is seen. Well, that's it for KTN Weekend Prime tonight. My name is John Allen Namu. This has been a Point of News. Stay tuned for Checkpoint, where we do continue with that discussion on corruption. Have a good night and see you tomorrow.
This is KTN. Welcome home.